The 2014 KCB Kenya National Rally Championship moved to new ground for the third round, the KCB Kiambu Rally. After the high-speed action that characterised the Machakos event, crews would face a new challenge as they raced through the coffee and tea estates of Kiambu. The narrow estate roads were just part of the challenge. Endless corners and junctions would be tough on both the drivers and the transmissions. The navigators would have to be on the ball. A single error could cost the crews lots of time. This event was going to be a real test compared to the first two rounds. Baldev Chaga's title defence was looking strong after a win in Machakos. His rivals had fallen by the wayside and he arrived for round 3, having opened up a considerable gap at the top of the field.
Just looking forward to seeing what the Protons do. I think that's what everyone's looking forward to. This rally might just really suit them because it's so tight and twisty. But I'm sure we'll give them a good fight. Let's see how it goes.
The big news in Kiambu was the arrival in Kenya of 2 Proton S2000s to be driven by Carl Tundo and Alistair Kavanagh. These 2-litre, normally aspirated cars were developed to run in the now disbanded Intercontinental Rally Challenge and were tested extensively on the Asia-Pacific Championship by Alistair McRae. The high-revving engines and sequential gearboxes would mean that Tundo and Kavanagh would need to change their driving styles to suit their new cars. Quentin Mitchell was making a welcome return. Despite still having no sponsorship, he had decided to use the advertising space on his car to raise awareness for elephants, supporting the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. The organisers, under the leadership of local rally hero Phineas Kimathi, had opted to run the event over 2 days, crews starting outside the Kiambu branch of the Kenya Commercial Bank. The Honourable William Kabogo, Governor for Kiambu, flagged competitors off on the first of 2 stages to be run on Saturday afternoon, with Peter Horsey and Bella Erskine first on the road. Day 1 would take the crews to Gatatha for a 20-kilometre stage through the tea estates before heading to the Migara estate for the first spectator stage. Crews would then go into service before the overnight rest halt. With the action resuming on Sunday morning, drivers would head out on the longest stage of the day through coffee plantations from Tatu City to Ruiru town. Then it would be onto a short 7-kilometre stage on the Marriott Tea Estate before service back at Migara Estate. Stage 5 was a repeat of Gatatha stage before a second spectator stage. Crews would repeat stages 3 and 4 and then complete a final run again through the spectator stage before finishing back again at Migara. The stages would be run on closed roads through private estates, which meant drivers could focus on attacking driving, confident in the knowledge they wouldn't meet any traffic on the road. Reigning champion Baldev Chaga was expecting strong challenge during the event from rivals Tundo, Duncan and Kavanagh, and unsurprisingly attacked from the onset, setting the fastest time a clear 23 seconds quicker than his nearest rival. Rajbir Rai picked up from where he left off in Machakos, second fastest, in turn 12 seconds quicker than Mitchell. Mitchell and Duncan set identical times to go third fastest, but were already 35 seconds down on Chaga's pace after just 20 kilometres. Jassi Chatti, back from a successful trip to South Africa, was 5th fastest, but with the car down on power and overheating, he was off the pace, dropping 1 minute and 17 seconds. Onkarai was 6th fastest, a further 28 seconds behind, the bulky Evo X's not well suited to this tight stage. After struggling with a severe cold and lung infection which had hampered his chances to test his new drive, Kavanagh was lying in 7th, for the first time getting the chance to drive his car in anger. Meanwhile, Peter Horsey in the road sweeping role was perhaps a little too cautious, dropping down to 8th. Despite making his first appearance on a rally in the ex-Mahesh Halai version 6 Impreza, Chandrakant Devji led the S-Class, lying 9th overall. Stephen Mwangi rounded out the top 10 in his Impreza, 3 minutes slower than Chaga. Having enjoyed his first podium in Machakos, Jasmeet Chana found himself in 11th, over 3 minutes down at the end of the opener. Tundo had punctured in the stage and was forced to stop to change the tyre, which the crew managed to do in under 3 minutes. But it cost them and they were languishing down in 15th. Hardeep Ressi saw the luck that had led to a sterling performance in Machakos run out when he got stuck in the coffee. Without spectators to help, his rally was over. Taito Ashira was another new face in the ex-Ben Mushemi Evo 6. He found himself second in the S-Class and lying 13th overall. David Keone was third fastest in the ageing Impreza, over 1 minute and 15 seconds down on class leader Devji. Alistair Keith started slowly and the class series leader found himself down in 4th and would need to step it up to get back in the chase. In the F2 class, Eric Bengi signalled his intent and went fastest in his Toyota Run X. Gurmit Thethi was second fastest, 18 seconds slower in his VW Golf. And defending champion Dennis Mwenda was 7 seconds slower still. The battle for class honours was once again going to be a tight contest. Championship leader Nadeem Khanna was only a further second behind in his Impreza. Just Zerbier was making a welcome return to the scene in his Land Rover Tornado, but was struggling to get the bulky car through the tight stage. As the crews headed to Megara Estate for the first of 3 runs through the spectator stage, it was a good mix of fast, smooth sections and technical parts as the stage crossed the valley. Organisers had laid out a spectacular venue where the public could watch and enjoy the rally in safety. Rajbir Rai set the fastest time. New navigator Dale Furness and he were working well together. They would end the day second overall. Chaga was second fastest, 3 seconds behind Rai. However, he would end the day with a 20-second lead, but was expecting a strong fight back from his rivals. Duncan got the better of Mitchell on this stage to end the day in third overall, but was still 39 seconds adrift. Tundo began his fight back, going 4th quickest. As with Kavanagh, the new car was taking some getting used to, and he found himself braking too early into corners. But overall, the car was working well. He ended the day in 9th place.
Apart from getting a puncture, it feels really good. Braking way too early. We got a puncture and had to change it, but it's good. It's good fun. You have to drive, as I said, you have to drive the hell out of it to get any power into it. But it's really, it's such good fun.
Tejveer Rai got caught out on this slippery corner and battled helplessly as the minutes ticked by. Eventually, enough spectators ran across the valley to push him out, but he had already lost over 6 minutes. It was a fun Saturday afternoon for the spectating crowds, who got a good taste of what would lie ahead the next day. Crews, meanwhile, arrived back to Parc Fermé with mixed feelings, also in the knowledge that Sunday would be hard on the cars and drivers alike.
Yeah, I had a puncture in the first stage.
You had a puncture as well?
Yeah.
Quite a few.
But the flash's fault as well.
Yeah. Was it?
No, we were just teasing each other on tyre pressure, so it I don't know, backfired a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, so struggled through the first stage, and then didn't really have the rhythm in the second. So let's see what happens tomorrow now.
Rough.
Yeah.
The special stage was good. We had fun in there. Hopefully tomorrow will be better.
The second leg began with the first run through the tattoo stage, 27 kilometres long and to be repeated later in the day. The start was a series of long straights and 90-degree corners on a wide sweeping road, encouraging the drivers to push it to the limit before diving back into the plantations for an instant change of tempo. The rest of the stage was again a series of tight and twisty hairpins and junctions, allowing for average speeds of just 63 kilometres per hour for the stage winner. Any hopes from his rivals that Tundo would take a while to settle into the Proton were shattered here, though. He comprehensively beat everyone by 2 minutes 39 seconds to move back into fourth overall, trailing leader Chaga by just 23 seconds now. Was second fastest in the sister car as he too began to get a better measure of the Proton, but he remained in 7th overall. Looking to impress potential sponsors, Mitchell went third fastest. However, with Tundo just 3 seconds behind him, he was unlikely to stay ahead for long. Duncan was only a second slower than Mitchell and moved into second overall after Ride dropped time with a sensor problem that affected his throttle.
Okay, it's just those little tiny tracks in the coffee, trying to find them, trying to stop. Sometimes there's traction, sometimes there's not, and then you know, if you overshoot, then you even by 2 feet, you still have to go backwards. So it wasn't intelligent what we were doing in there in some places.
Chatty was 5th fastest, just 2 seconds slower than Duncan, but dropped back to 6th to allow Tundo to leapfrog up the field. Determined to take back the S-Class lead, Alistair Keith set the 6th fastest time in the Old Impreza. It was a brave drive that saw him also move up to 10th overall. Tejveer Rai was 7th fastest as he began his recovery after losing considerable time on the previous day's stages. Onkarai was 8th fastest, dropping in turn 10 seconds to Tejveer. He was 8th overall and needed to find some pace if he wanted to move up the field. Baldiv Chaga was still in the overall lead, but lost almost 3.5 minutes to Tundo. He started first on the road, but overshot several junctions on the slippery grass and was surprised by the pace of the Proton. After a reseed, Peter Horsey was no longer road sweeping, but was still off the pace. Going 10th fastest, he dropped back to 9th overall. David Keone couldn't match Keith on this stage, dropping back to 2nd in the S-Class and 12th overall. Zoost Zerbier was only 8 seconds further back in the Tornado and moved into 3rd in his class, ahead of James Karimi, who was now 6 seconds behind Zerbier. He too recovered from several wrong slots on the previous day, but his rally would end on the next stage when he went off and hit a tree. Gurmit Thethi was an impressive 12th fastest in his F2 VW Golf, moving him into the class lead and up into 15th overall. Dennis Mwenda was 2nd fastest, but now trailing Thethi by 1 minute and 23 seconds. Eric Bengi had started the day in the lead, but retired with a blown gearbox. It had been a difficult opening day for Leonardo Varese, but he went third fastest now and moved up into third overall after several of his rivals, including Kana, retired on the stage. As competitors moved on to Mariette for the fourth stage, they saw it reduced by 7 kilometres after the drivers felt the last 8 kilometres were too rough. It was a fast stage run on a mix of gravel and broken tarmac, and the drivers were able to open up again with average top speeds back to 156 kilometres per hour. Chaga and Tundo set identical times of 3 minutes 45 seconds, with Duncan a further 8 seconds back. Tundo now had the chance to overhaul Mitchell to move into third overall, just 10 seconds behind Duncan in the battle for second. For most crews, it had been a nice break from all the corners on the previous long stage. Cars now headed back to the service park at Megara Estate for the first of 2 visits during the day. The Mitsubishi crews had been surprised by the Proton's pace and would be hoping to find some answers soon.
The stage of Tattoo City was so slippery, it was unreal. The grass just catches you out. We must have spun at least 4 times or overshot 4 times. No matter what you do, you brake early, you do whatever you want to, the car just kind of just drifts along. And unfortunately, we've damaged the first gear as well. So we're hardly using it. I think it's missing 1 tooth. So, and all those corners require first gear.
Sadly, Rajbir Rai's car was seen being loaded onto the trailer. He had once again impressed with his pace on the opening stages, and we're in no doubt he'll be challenging for overall honours in the not-too-distant future.
Yeah, because I overshot 2 or 3 times, but I think everyone did. I followed a lot of people's lines into the bushes. Right. It was really slippery. Maybe just the handling on this car's a little bit better, but it felt awful. Even my navigator got angry with me at one stage, but I was driving like a fool.
We pick up the action here as the crews return to the 5th stage, a rerun of the event's first stage back through the tea estates surrounding Gatatha. Chaga was by now in full attack mode as he defended his lead and went fastest, ahead of Tundo by 9 seconds and again opening up a 30-second gap over Duncan. Tundo was second with 7 seconds over Duncan to close the gap to just 3 seconds. Duncan holding on to second overall but losing ground to the Proton. Mitchell was now a second slower on the stage than Duncan, but just 16 seconds behind overall. He was still in with a chance to snatch a podium if any of the leaders made a mistake. Chatty was losing ground to the leaders and was seemingly stuck in a vacuum for 5th overall. Over 1.5 minutes behind, but with a similar gap to 6th place, where Onka Rai had managed 6th fastest to keep ahead of Horsey.
Going on, but still not very happy with the performance of the car. We're lacking some power and there seems to be some technical issue on the mapping or something. We're not getting enough power in the car.
Horsey moved back to 7th after both Rajbir Rai and Alistair Kavanagh retired. Kavanagh's run had come to an abrupt end after the plate holding the cooling fan came off. Jasmeet Channa had been struggling with the morning's wet grass, but found some pace to go 8th fastest in the Evo 9, moving him ahead of Keith and up into 8th overall. 9th fastest Tejveer Rai remained in 17th overall in the N16.